a key thought is whatever group of people that you're going to want to be a part of, you need an insider to vouch for you. Well, I mean, I guess some of the cultural nuance. Whatever type of girl that you want to meet, you're going to have to have some insider knowledge of that culture yourself, Because without that, like, if you think of, gosh, I think I'm going to make everything really nerdy today. But, once upon a time, I took a class at Chicago from a fellow, his name was Ronald Burt. And this guy he had a PhD in sociology, but he taught in the business school at Chicago. And something that he talked about a lot, and we had amazing conversations. He's really one of the more brilliant psychologists I ever met in my life. And again, I said his degree's in sociology, and it was, but I'll say psychology loosely because that's how I think of it. But I think he was really a brilliant person, and he's very charismatic and very fun to talk to. And he was just with you. His brain was there with you, and he was very impressed with me. We were very impressed with each other. That we kind of had a special something in that class that most of the other classmates, they were just there taking a class, but we kind of had like a bromance, that we understood each other in a deep way. And he spent his career, he had a unique career, that he'd work at a company for 18 months or 30 months, and he'd go map out the social hierarchy. I don't think he'd mind me saying the name. One of them was Raytheon in LA, that he'd worked at that Raytheon office near the airport in LA, and spent a couple of years over there. And he'd go into a pretty big office building, and his gig there is he would go to do a bunch of surveys and interviews. And he just comes off very under the radar, surveys and interviews and surveys and interviews, and they're doing some mundane, steady type of thing. Well, at the end of a couple years of him lingering around with his surveys and interviews, he'd map out the entire social hierarchy, not by their title, but who were the real decision makers. And he'd give these in-depth reports backed by a lot of statistics. It's very impressive the way he displayed the math on some of these things, of who the decision makers are, and who needs to be promoted, who needs to be fired, and how to restructure their business. And if they kept this guy around to pay him the type of money they were paying him to do this, then they also tend to take action on those reports too, And something that he talked about an awful lot, he wrote a book. This is not a book to bother reading, by the way, but it's like the most dull encyclopedia. Very charismatic guy. In real life, if you had a conversation, extremely impressive man to have a conversation with. The book is unreadable except for the most nerdy of nerds. But he wrote a book called Brokerage and Closure. And those two comments, brokerage or closure, he said the people that end up at the top of an organization, top of a corporate hierarchy, they tend to go through alternating phases throughout their career of, A, being a social broker, which is exactly what I'm doing with all of you right now. So A, being a social broker and putting them in a context where they're going to meet a lot of different people and, unique and interesting people here and there. And, might have a little transactional relationship with some of them, which is really up to you folks. For those that come here to use me as a prostitute to pick my brain for a little bit and then go fumble around in the world in a half-assed manner, that's okay with me. It's fine enough. But the ones that I really came to meet are the ones that I'm going to see again and again and have a real relationship and a real friendship, and we'll go do things together in real life, and those are people that I want to spend my life with later. But anyway, Ronald said that you'd alternate in a couple years at a time, or a year or two, depending on the context, that within a corporate structure, that you'd like to take assignments that other people maybe wouldn't take, or things that were outside of your normal silo or purview, and you want to go work with this group over here for 2-3 months on some project, and you want to know the group leader within that. You're not there being competitive, but you go work and contribute and do your part, and you'd like to know the group leader. And then who would be, if that person died or quit or got fired or whatever, who would be the natural leader that would fill that void within this group, And then you work 2 or 3 months over there, and you'd work 1 or 2 or 3 months over here, and 1 or 2, 3 months over there. And you have real relationships with those people after you spend a couple months together. And so all the leaders of those groups know you and respect you. And the person that would be the natural, that would fill that void in their absence knows you and respects you, because things change. And then you'll have, after a year or two of that, He says some special project will come up, and then you'll be the natural leader of that project. You'll take the lead on that project, and you have all the support teams that you need. You have all these support groups from this function, that function, this function, that function, and even if your main contact left, you still have the new main contact. They know you, they like you, they trust you. You're an insider. That's a key word. You're an insider. You're one of them. And you can get tremendous buy-in when you have that. They're not fighting you because they don't know you. You didn't have a confrontational or a competitive relationship before. You came there to play support for them. You came there to fill voids and learn who they are and how they are and help them. And later on, they're happy to contribute back. And he says those are the people that ends up that they advance rapidly through an organization, that they take on that new project and they have a ton of support and they get it done great because they have all the right social relationships. And then they go back to a new, so he called that the closure phase, so that, bringing the group together and, closing that social time and focusing on a specific project in depth. And then you'd rotate out of that and you'd go back to a social brokerage and meet some new people and do it again and do it again. And a person that does that, a few times per decade, pretty soon those are the people that are in the top executive places in that position, in that firm or in some other firm, because they got pulled away and now they're they were a executive and then they became a CEO somewhere else or something. So I thought about that, and I was always good at the things like that in life anyway. And I even thought about that in this context. It's like, well, I like to go meet smart, industrious people all around the world and so on and so on. I get all sorts of interesting things done. It's pretty amazing, really. So, that a key thought is whatever group of people that you're going to want to be a part of, you need an insider to vouch for you. You need some inside knowledge or some industry insider information about. When he and I talked about plumbing yesterday, do you have any doubt that I know what I'm talking about plumbing?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah. And a number of other areas I could. And again, the people that know me best here know that I could talk about 30 or 40 things in a similar detail. Not because I'm a fucking genius at everything, but I wouldn't be able to have that conversation with a subject matter expert unless I knew a good bit about it myself. You probably know a lot more about it. There's some other nuances you could teach me, but we had a clear conversation that that there's enough depth and detail and nuance that you can't fake that shit. You either lived it or you didn't, If you didn't like this video, please feel free to unfollow. My clients and I celebrate when the wrong person leaves our lives. But if you did like this video, if you're a person that's dedicated to success, dedicated to a better life, make sure you like and subscribe. I have a lot more to share with you. I look forward to seeing you at one of my live events in the future or as a client on one of my paid mentoring programs.